Hey y'all, I'm Val from Our Forever Farm. I'm glad you're here. I really am. I thank you for watching. Hey y'all, I had something really sweet happen a few days ago.
I received a message from an unmet friend the other day.
She's a very special lady, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her throughout the video. But she has sent me some family recipes and shared them with me. I hope to meet her one day. I hope one day she's not an unmet friend. She sent me several recipes. This one is called Savory pepper steak. It sounds really, really good. And I thank you, Rhonda, my unmet friend, for sending this to me. And we're going to have lots more recipes from her. So let's get to cooking. So the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need 1.5 pounds of round steak. We're going to use all-purpose flour in this recipe. We're going to use salt and pepper. We're going to use canned tomatoes. Now this recipe calls for me to drain the tomatoes but save the juice. So that's what I'm doing right here. I've been letting this sit in this container and save the juice. I just use diced tomatoes. I guess you could use whole tomatoes. This recipe calls for 1/2 cup of onion, and thankfully I had some in the freezer, frozen, already chopped up. Calls for the W sauce. Y'all know I'm not going to try to say that. I have before. I just call it the W sauce. This recipe calls for 2 large bell peppers. This recipe calls for any kind of cooking oil. I'm using vegetable oil. This recipe calls for water. It also calls for 1 small garlic clove, which y'all know me, I'm using this. I'm going to use about a teaspoon of that. So let's get started. Also remember that the recipe will be in the description box. Rhonda has given us permission to share this with all of y'all. So I'm very excited about this. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Now, when I went to buy this meat, they had thin and what they call thick. It's about 1/2 inch thick. And on her recipe, that's what it says, is about 1/2 inch thick. It might need to be a little bit thicker, but this is what we have to work with, and I think it's going to be good.
So I've trimmed the fat off the meat and I've cut it into bite-sized pieces. I'm placing it in a bowl. Now, if you're wondering why I told you the ingredients before I'm giving you the amounts, it's so if you want to follow along, you can go ahead and get your ingredients out. And I hope that helps you. Now we're going to add 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Now to the flour and the meat, we're adding 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper and 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
And we're just going to coat these cubes, trying to get every cube covered with flour, salt, and pepper. You can use your hands, you can use a spoon, whatever you prefer to do. Now we're moving over to the stove, and I'm going to heat some oil in this iron skillet. You do not have to use this iron skillet, but you can use any cookware you want. I collect iron skillets, y'all. I have an addiction. This calls for 1/4 cup of cooking oil. I'm using vegetable oil.
Now we're just going to place our meat in this hot pan. I wanted to share just a little bit about the person that gave us this recipe. She learned to cook when she was 5 years old. Her mom had surgery and they couldn't get anybody to stay with her, and she had no choice but to learn how to run the household. Can you imagine that?
I waited till my pan was hot to put my seasoned meat in. And I'm going to cook it till it's brown on all sides.
Rhonda shared with me that when she was learning to cook, she would get a chair and drag it to the sink, measure the water, and take it to the bedroom to ask her mother if it was enough to cook rice or whatever. I thought that was so neat. She also shared with me that her mother, her granny, and her aunts were great homemakers. So she learned early, and she had great examples. She went on to get married, and they've been married 50 years. Isn't that something? As you can see, the meat is getting browner. Look at that goodness on the bottom of the pan. Now, when we add the liquids to this will deglaze the pan and get that goodness off the bottom. Oh my goodness. It smells so good.
So y'all remember I've drained the tomatoes. Do not discard that liquid because you're going to use it. So right now I'm going to put the tomato liquid in the skillet with the meat. So we're going to pour the tomato liquid into the pan. That is going to cool our pan down a lot. And I'm going to scrape it. The recipe doesn't say to do this, but I like to scrape the bottom of the pan to get all that goodness off. Next, we're going to add 1 3/4 cups of water to the mix. I'm just going to keep scraping this on the bottom, get that goodness out. Now remember, set your tomatoes aside. We are going to use those.
Now we're adding 1/2 cup of chopped onions. I'm so glad I had these in the freezer already chopped.
Now this recipe calls for 1 small clove of garlic. I'm going to use a heaping teaspoonful of the minced garlic. Now we're going to turn this down on low, and we're going to cover this, and we're going to simmer it for 45 to 60 minutes. You want your meat to be tender. I've got to go to the garden and get a salad for supper out of my salad bowl garden.
Y'all, this is my favorite place to be. Listen to those birds. This garden is my salad bowl garden, and it has all kinds of greens in it. It has lettuce, spinach, several different kinds of lettuce. It's got romaine, it's got radishes, it's got onions, it's got turnip greens, it's got mustard greens. It's got everything in it, and it makes a wonderful salad. I found some sticks in my garden, so I thought I'd throw them in the fire pit. Have y'all saw the video where Sweet Hunter surprised me with the fire pit? If you haven't, I'll link it in the description box. It's beautiful.
Look at this beautiful salad that I got from the garden. I didn't get any onions because I'm just gonna make it out of this. It is beautiful. We've had it several days, but I wanted to get enough to make 2 salads tonight. And I made omelets this morning and had leftover goodies, mushrooms, tomatoes, things like that. And I'm gonna make tacos tomorrow, I think. And so I wanted to get enough for the tacos too. So we're gonna make a salad out of this while that's cooking.
Look how good this looks. Look at the gravy it's making. So there's so much more I could tell you about my new unmet friend, Rhonda. She is so sweet. She took my Dutch oven crusty bread and made a loaf for several of her neighbors. That just tickled me pink. She even sent me pictures of the loaves of bread she made. They were beautiful. If you haven't tried that Dutch oven crusty bread, I'll leave a link in the description box so you can make it. It is so easy. Anybody that wants to try to make bread, this is the one to start with. It is delicious too. But I think what meant the most to me is that she took the time to send us family recipes and share them with us and tell me that I could share them on YouTube. I just think that's awesome. You know, a lot of people won't share their family recipes. If you would like to share a recipe with us like Rhonda did for us to try here on our channel, and I would love that, I'll put my address up on the screen and it's also in the description box. I would love to get handwritten cards with recipes that you treasure that you'd like to share. And I would treasure it, I promise you.
So I thought, what am I going to fix for dessert? So I remembered that I had sweet potato pie from Thanksgiving downstairs in the freezer. Fast food, y'all. I'm gonna set it in the cake plate, And it'll thaw out in just a little while and be ready for after supper.
So next we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of the W sauce.
So now we're going to add our bell pepper. This is 2 good sized chopped bell peppers.
Now we're going to cover this and let it simmer for 5 minutes.
Now, if you think that your meat is sticking, you can add a little more water in the gravy. Oh, it smells so good.
So this is after the bell peppers have cooked for 5 minutes. Look at that gravy. Oh my goodness. My meat is not sticking, but it's very close to it, so y'all watch it at this point. And you, like I said, you can add water to it if you want to. We're going to go ahead and add our tomatoes. So this is 16 ounces of drained canned tomatoes. And we're going to let this simmer about 5 minutes more.
This is not part of Rhonda's recipe, but when I use tomatoes like this in a dish, I add just a pinch of sugar, just for the acid in the dish. So maybe a teaspoon of sugar max. And that's optional. She did not add that. Might be a southern thing, I don't know. She's a country gal too, though.
So I asked Rhonda how she served this meal, and she said she served it over hot rice and with a salad. So that's exactly what I did. Look at this. Isn't that beautiful? Y'all should smell it. And I served it right out of the iron skillet. Salad out of my salad bowl garden and rice. What an easy meal this is. And I had enough to freeze too. Rhonda, thank you so much. Actually, thank you is not enough. I love to try new things. You know, we all get in ruts and we make the same things over and over. This is great. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to your other recipes that you sent. Supper's ready, y'all. There's a roof up above us, a good place to sleep. There's food on our table and shoes on our feet. You gave us your love, Lord, and a fine family. Thank you, Lord, for your blessings on us. Here I'm sharing with Sweet Hunter about Rhonda and her family recipes. I told him we want a taste test from him.
Hey Rhonda, this better be good. I'm gonna give it a try. Very good. Really got a good tomatoey taste to it. And of course I'm a fan of rice, so thumbs up on it. Thank you, Rhonda.
So now I'm gonna try it. Look at this. Don't that look good? Savory pepper steak over rice. That's delicious. I love it. That's delicious.
Yes, it is. Very good.
Wow, y'all, this was absolutely delicious. I'm telling you, y'all need to try it. It's delicious. Sweet Hunter really liked it a lot. That's his kind of thing. Meat and rice, he loves that. So y'all go cook something